U.S. officials are emphasizing the critical need to bolster air defense capabilities to safeguard bases and allies against potential attacks. They believe that significant operations can only be undertaken after additional air defense systems are deployed. This additional armament is crucial for protecting Israel, Arab allies, and U.S. bases from missile and drone swarms. The distinction between limited strikes and major operations is crucial for understanding the current planning posture. Defensive readiness is prioritized, alongside any offensive considerations during periods of tension. Air and missile defense systems still require strengthening to protect bases and partners in the event of retaliatory actions. Washington is working to deploy additional air and missile defense systems across the Middle East. U.S. warships, stealth fighters, and missile interceptors are moving into the region, but American bases, Israel, and Arab allies remain vulnerable to Iranian drones and ballistic missiles. The tension between military preparations and diplomatic engagement defines the current phase of the crisis. The USS Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier has arrived in the U.S. Central Command area, providing mobile air power and sea-based strike capabilities. The U.S. Air Force has also deployed a wide range of assets, including stealth fighters and tankers. THAAD and Patriot systems are being deployed to U.S. bases across the Middle East, enhancing protection against ballistic and cruise threats. Iran has made it clear that U.S. bases and military assets in the Middle East would be targets for retaliatory strikes in the event of an attack. Iranian media is circulating strike simulations and harsh rhetoric against U.S. naval forces. Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, warned that a U.S. attack could spark a regional war, and that the Iranian nation would deliver a powerful blow to anyone who attacks and threatens Iran. Khamenei stated that the Iranian nation would not be intimidated by threats and was not afraid of an honest confrontation. He emphasized that Iran is not the initiator of conflict and does not want to attack any country, but will defend itself if attacked. This statement combines defiance with positioning Iran as responding to aggression rather than initiating conflict. Tensions between the U.S. and Iran persist, fueled by the standoff over Tehran's nuclear program. Donald Trump and Ayatollah Ali Khamenei have exchanged warnings that demonstrate strength while leaving room for diplomatic outcomes. Commenting on Khamenei's warning of a potential regional war in the event of a U.S. attack, Trump stated that nearby American ships are the largest and most powerful, and expressed hope for a deal soon. "Quote zero," he said, adding that if there's no deal, it will become clear whether Khamenei is right. Trump insists on a deal with Iran to end its nuclear program to avoid war, combining military pressure with a diplomatic off-ramp. The exchange of warnings between Khamenei and Trump illustrates the rhetorical aspect of the current standoff. While the terms of a potential deal remain contentious, the U.S. and Iran have agreed to hold talks to de-escalate tensions. The diplomatic track continues parallel to military preparations. Talks are being organized in Turkey under the leadership of Steve Witkoff and Iranian representative Abbas Araghchi. The involvement of a high-ranking American representative signals the seriousness of diplomatic engagement. Turkey, Egypt, and Qatar will be part of the meeting, indicating a broader regional role in facilitating dialogue. Iranian media reported that Masoud Pezeshkian has authorized the resumption of nuclear talks within a strictly nuclear agenda. The trilateral mediation role reflects regional interests in preventing escalation. The U.S. has sent signals through indirect channels, indicating a willingness to negotiate. Trump links military pressure to demands regarding Iran's nuclear dossier and broader conduct. The precise terms remain contentious. Diplomatic developments suggest that tensions remain high, but diplomacy is gaining momentum, with progress in indirect nuclear talks and regional mediation. Saudi officials have stated they will not allow their airspace to be used, And the UAE has reiterated that its territory will not be used for hostile actions. These positions complicate U.S. operational planning and reflect regional risk calculations for retaliation. The deployment of THAAD and Patriot systems to U.S. bases across the Middle East strengthens protection against ballistic and cruise threats. The deployment aims to address defensive concerns and covers bases in Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and Jordan. These systems provide layered defense against various categories of missile threats. The defensive buildup continues, even amidst active diplomatic channels. Military preparations and diplomatic engagement are running on parallel tracks, characterizing the current phase of the crisis. Iran agrees to negotiate on nuclear issues in exchange for sanctions relief, but insists that missiles and regional relations are not negotiable. This position defines the scope of potential talks from Tehran's perspective. The gap between U.S. demands and Iranian red lines creates significant challenges for a diplomatic resolution. Washington seeks comprehensive changes, while Tehran limits discussions to the nuclear dossier and sanctions relief. Internal tensions in Iran continue to mount, accompanied by protests and arrests, affecting the domestic environment. Assessing how internal pressures influence Iranian negotiating positions is quite difficult from the outside. The positions of both sides suggest that even if talks take place, reaching an agreement will require significant compromises. The terms acceptable to both sides remain unclear as diplomatic efforts continue. Limited U.S. airstrikes could be conducted quickly, but a larger operation would likely provoke a similar or broader response from Iran across the region. The distinction between limited and major operations is essential for understanding American options and limitations. Limited strikes might target specific facilities, avoiding a sustained campaign that would provoke a maximal Iranian response. However, the line between limited and major operations can be difficult to control once hostilities begin. A major operation would require additional defensive preparations, which are currently underway. The timing of such preparations impacts the window for potential actions. The preference for defensive readiness before major operations suggests that any short-term actions, if they occur, will be limited in scope. It is unclear whether limited actions would achieve U.S. objectives or still provoke escalation. F-35s played a key role in the U.S. Midnight Hammer operation against Iran in June 2025. This provides context for current aircraft movements and their capabilities. Additional F-15Es are deployed, and F-35s have been spotted en route to Europe. The final destination is unconfirmed. Analysts consider stealth aircraft useful for high-risk strike missions. Iranian officials claim their defenses can counter such aircraft, but these claims cannot be independently verified and are viewed skeptically by Western analysts. The deployment of specific aircraft types sends signals about American capabilities. Whether these movements will serve as deterrence, coercive diplomacy, or operational preparation depends on decisions yet to be made. Khamenei's rhetoric emphasizes Iranian resolve and positions the country as responding to aggression rather than initiating conflict. Quote 3, he said, positioning Iran as defending itself and warning of significant consequences for any attack. This rhetoric serves both domestic and international audiences, projecting strength amidst economic pressures and internal tensions. The consistency of Iranian rhetoric about regional consequences reflects Tehran's strategic framework. The success of this deterrence depends on Washington's assessment of the costs and benefits of various courses of action. Trump's public statements consistently combine military positioning with an emphasis on negotiated outcomes, using the threat of force to gain concessions without employing it. Trump has repeatedly stated a preference for a deal over military action. At the heart of the action under consideration is a complex set of diplomatic and military factors. Analysts with varying views debate the sincerity and terms of preferences, raising questions about whether a coercive approach facilitates diplomatic progress or strengthens the opposing side's position. The historical experience of using similar strategies is mixed, and the outcomes depend on many factors, including the assessment of the opponent's resolve. Despite public statements, defensive readiness remains a priority alongside offensive considerations. Protecting allies and military bases is considered important before any major actions, which shapes approaches regardless of political rhetoric. The public disclosure of these concerns can serve various purposes, signaling caution, managing expectations, or creating pressure for a diplomatic resolution. The motivations of officials who shared information with journalists remain unclear to outside observers. However, the provided report offers a glimpse into American debates that typically remain behind the scenes. It is unclear whether this information reflects a consensus view or one of many existing perspectives. Any potential conflict between the US and Iran would unfold in a complex regional context with far-reaching consequences. American forces operate from bases located throughout the Persian Gulf region, making them potential targets for Iranian retaliation. Assessments of the potential costs of conflict include energy infrastructure, key maritime routes, and broader regional stability. The economic and political consequences of any exchange would be significant and extend far beyond direct military effects. The Strait of Hormuz is a critical global energy choke point, and any escalation of conflict in this region could significantly impact global markets. Iranian threats to disrupt shipping add economic dimensions to security calculations. Regional allies face difficult calculations of the risks of involvement and the consequences of escalation, affecting both US planning and the broader diplomatic environment. Diplomatic developments, including agreed-upon talks and regional mediation, create a potential window for de-escalation. The effectiveness of using this window depends on decisions made in several capitals. Parallel tracks of military preparations and diplomatic engagement mean that both escalation and de-escalation remain simultaneously possible. The current situation remains volatile, with multiple potential trajectories. Trump's statements about deals and Iranian statements about readiness for negotiations suggest that both sides see value in diplomatic outcomes. However, the terms of any acceptable deal remain unclear and potentially incompatible. The key question is whether diplomacy can yield results before military dynamics create their own momentum. The coming days and weeks could be crucial in determining which track ultimately prevails. Tensions between the US and Iran remain high, but diplomacy continues to be an important factor in the evolving situation.